This portion of Lee Pitts Live is brought to you by Hodges University, educating the leaders of our community for over 20 years.
Show, we immortalizing you. All right, Southwest Florida. Yes, that was Dr. Bradshaw. This is Lee Pitts Live. And speaking of Dr. Bradshaw, known around town as Bradley, he's here in the studio, and we're excited about him. Of course, he's the president of Florida Gulf Coast University. He's done an outstanding job now, his 6th year here in Southwest Florida, running one of the finest universities in all the land. Florida Gulf Coast University is our topic, and yes, we will discuss Dunk City. I'd like you to know that when he first got in town, Dr. Bradshaw, about 6 years ago, he invited me up to his office. I'll never forget it. We sat down, we had lunch in his office, and I was so proud to be in the president's office having lunch. Of course, I've had some standout lunches over the years, but that was one of the highlights of my life, so I'm delighted to have him here in the studio with all the success he's had. Dr. Bradshaw, welcome to the show.
Always a pleasure to be here with you, Lee.
Hey, Dr. Bradshaw, when you first got here, and one of the things you shared with me in your office, you might not remember it, but I remember it very well, and I went back and I was telling my wife about it, is that you were saying, hey, Lee, I've been in towns before as a new president, but never this much attention. I was just surprised at all the attention with me, heading up the new university. Elaborate on that and let our viewing audience know what it's like for all the attention you got when you first got here. And
well, yeah, it was really very different because I'd spent the previous almost 8 years as president of Metropolitan State University in Minneapolis, St. Paul, big metropolitan area, and I could go 3 or 4 blocks from my university in that city and no one would know who I was. When I came here to Southwest Florida, it was very gratifying, but very surprising that everywhere I went, people knew who I was. And in fact, I think I shared with you, I went to a Chinese restaurant and the whole kitchen emptied out and they brought menus for me to autograph. I was totally blown away.
Wow.
But it was a great experience.
That's got to be something. And typically, when wherever you were, I think you told me there were several other colleges there.
Oh, sure.
Here there are several other colleges. You would say, hey, I was just one of many presidents, but that attention that you got there would bring coming in here to head up the new, what was still roughly new university in the grand scheme of universities. Share that with our audience about the relatively newness of Florida Gulf Coast compared to universities.
And it's still relatively new. I think the difference here with the attention is that Florida Gulf Coast University is the largest of the universities and colleges in this region, and it was the last region to get a state regional university. So I think all of that played into the notoriety and indeed the celebrity of it all.
Now, speaking of celebrity, and I know you're modest and you like to talk about the team and all of that, but what's it like for you personally to, for all practical purposes, be one of the most powerful persons in Southwest Florida? What's that like on a daily basis?
I don't know if I'm one of the most powerful persons in Southwest Florida. I do think I'm one of the most fortunate ones, having grown up in Florida and been educated in the public school system, to be able to come back and be a part of that public school system, especially at the university level, and to be a part of making educational opportunities available to folks like myself. I was the first to graduate from college. To me, that's very special. So I feel very fortunate to have this opportunity, and just really glad that I'm back in my home state doing what I'm doing.
Before we get off of that, you grew up in Sanford, Florida. Now Sanford, Florida is somewhat of a household word since the Trayvon Martin trial. Trayvon was shot and killed in Sanford, Florida. Growing up there and what you're seeing depicted on television as the image of Sanford, Florida as being a very suppressed, depressing place in terms of for minorities and opportunities and so on and so forth. Are we seeing the reality on what we're hearing about Sanford, Florida?
Well, I was born in Sanford and I lived in Sanford until I was in the 3rd grade. Sanford was a very segregated town. Then I moved to West Palm Beach. But you know what? West Palm Beach was very segregated town. I ate at segregated lunch counters, went to segregated schools until I was in the 9th grade. So I grew up many years in a segregated Florida, which has changed tremendously. It's not perfect. This country's not perfect, but we've come a long way. You know, my mom died in 2001, and had I asked her in the year 2000 if we would ever have an African American president, she would think I was crazy.
You're right about that.
So I think that things are changing, and I think it's all of our responsibility to continue to make sure things are better and better for everyone.
As a president of a major university, how does a president go about crafting a comment about the Trayvon Martin trial in general? If you had to craft a comment about, if you had anything to say about what it meant to Florida and what it meant to the way various people saw it, do presidents usually stay away from those types of questions?
Not necessarily. I mean, if you're asking me about it,
right? You don't stay away from anything, though.
Not, well, you know, I think what people are beginning to understand, should understand from this and from past experiences, that this is a justice system. The justice system is not absolute. It really is driven by people. And you know, there was a time in this country when segregation was legal. And that was the justice system. That has changed. In 1954, the Supreme Court ruled unanimously that separate but equal was unconstitutional. That's part of the justice system. That's part of the justice, system that Americans need to participate in. It is far from perfect, but it's what we have, and we need to acknowledge how it is changing.
The whole idea of what you were just saying, you know, the passing of the law in 1954, and then in 1963 you had the March on Washington, and I'm glad I got you here, because in August we're going to be celebrating the 50th anniversary of the March on Washington, Dr. King, and that whole movement in 1963, 50th anniversary. What in 1963? What was Dr. Bradshaw doing with his life at that time, and how did the March on Washington impact you?
In 1963, I was in the 9th grade. That was the first year I went to school in an integrated setting. The very first year. There may have been 5 African Americans going to Central Junior High School in West Palm Beach. So things were beginning to desegregate. You know, and many people who remember, and I know I remember the March on Washington, and talking to white 9th graders and hearing what they thought about it, and the majority of them thought it was unnecessary. It thought it was provocative, although in 9th grade we didn't use that word. We had other words. But many people forget that 18 months after the march in Washington, there was a bombing in Birmingham, Alabama at the 16th Street Methodist Church. So many people see the March on Washington as really the beginning of a lot of change, but things didn't change
immediately. Right?
Immediately. In fact, when you mentioned 1954, when segregation was ruled unconstitutional, I didn't go to an integrated school until 1963, almost 10 years after the Constitution.
Amazing.
After the Supreme Court had ruled that way.
What does that do in terms of you and your ideology now? You move around on campus, and I think it's a great thing, just like the President of the United States. Without even saying anything, you're implementing change, and people are seeing different things. They see, you know, Florida Gulf Coast University is predominantly white students. I know you got some diversity there, but they get to be impressed by an African American president of the university, and that continues to put a different image in front of them that they can get comfortable with, right?
Well, I think that the diversity you see at the university, I'm very pleased, very proud of it. Less than 70% of our students are white students. So we have a very diverse campus. About 18% are Hispanic, about 7% are African American. And in many ways, we reflect the demographics of this changing country, and we're very proud of that. And I think the diversity of the student body, bringing diverse perspectives, experiences to the classroom, we all benefit from that. That's the strength of the educational experience at Florida Gulf Coast University. It is enhanced by the diversity of our faculty, staff, and student body.
I was recently at an event there that I was so proud to be a part of with the African Network of Southwest Florida that was hosted at Florida Gulf Coast University. And there's some events coming up in the future that I'm going to be attending there. And the Paul Robeson one-man act, and just so many things that bring in culture, not just for the African American, but culture in general to Florida Gulf Coast University. Is that something that everybody is proud of and is constantly pushing?
Yeah, you know, I think a lot of what happens now in Southwest Florida wouldn't happen if Florida Gulf Coast University was not here. We have a very rich and heterogeneous higher education environment. We have Hodges, and they do great things, and we have Edison State College and some of the private for-profit and not-for-profit institutions of higher ed. So they really enrich the environment, but Florida Gulf Coast University has a special place there. If we were not here, I suspect that Laura Bush would not have been on our campus. She's been here, in addition to Colin Powell, who's been a speaker at Florida Gulf Coast University, and some of the other names that you mentioned. That's what we do. We bring a rich cultural, social, and economic environment, and we're very pleased to be a part of all of that.
Great. Okay. When you guys see Dr. Bradshaw, and now when you see Florida Gulf Coast University, you think of them like Duke basketball. Let's take a look at this picture that's up on the screen right here, Rick, if you can bring that up. Dunk City. And everybody is talking about it everywhere. We see Dunk City. I got an autographed copy of that picture right now that I'm going to hang at home. Dr. Bradshaw just gave it to me and got the autograph there. And Dunk City certainly put Fort Myers, Florida Gulf Coast, and Southwest Florida region on the map. Unbelievable publicity. And I was just watching it all over ESPN and everywhere else. And every time they said Florida Gulf Coast University, me being a guy who understands marketing,
sure,
maybe to a degree more than a lot of people would understand, every time that name is mentioned, what it does for the university and for the area. Speak to that and how it impacted the university and our community.
Well, you know, it was a great time in March for our university, and our basketball team, they did a tremendous job. They made history in the NCAA tournament, the only 15-seeded team to go to the Sweet 16. That the first and only one.
Isn't
so that in and of itself is history. And it was only the second year that they were eligible to play in the tournament. As you know, we just transitioned to Division I. And what many people forget is that last year was the first year our women's basketball team was eligible, and they went to the tournament. Unfortunately, they lost to St. Bonaventure, but they went to the tournament the first year they were eligible. So it's been an excellent time for the university and for the region.
Would you say that as a college president, you just had all the luck has just fallen on you? Good things just happened on Dr. Bradshaw. I'm sitting there saying, okay, like when the women went, I'm like, wow, he just got here, boom. Then the next thing you know, you're in the NCAA tournament, moving up through the ranks. It's like you just brought, I know you don't want to take it like that, but it's like good stuff, all this good stuff is just happening.
Yeah, well, you know, maybe it was a time for the university, but you know, it is so great working with dedicated and smart people, and our faculty and our staff, the administrators, the coaches, the athletic director. These folks are all committed to excellence for FGCU across all dimensions, and it's just great to be here. And you know what? We'll take a little luck from now.
That's right.
Now and then.
Now, Dr. Bradshaw, when you go back to the tournament,
sure,
the Eagles, when did you start feeling like, hey, this thing could get, you start, getting these phone calls from ESPN? When did you realize that this is bigger than I thought it would,
Well, when we made the tournament, we were sort of surprised. We went into the ASUN tournament hopeful and confident that we had a shot. We certainly thought our women had a shot. Unfortunately, they did not win the tournament, but our men did. And we were so excited about making the tournament, and we went to Philadelphia, as you know, to play Georgetown. And all of us were very excited, and we, in the back of our minds, we thought, well, we're in the tournament, that's great, we're going to play Georgetown, we'll give them our best, and then we'll come home the next day.
Right.
Well, that didn't happen, as you know. We beat Georgetown and then San Diego State University, and then we came home, and my wife and I traveled with the team, and the welcome that we got back was just super. This whole region was rocking, and everybody, every town, every community was Dunk City.
I'm sitting there looking at it on television, and I'm like, this isn't happening, is it? And I'm constantly looking, I was in a sports bar, this isn't happening, is it? And it kept going, and I had a real good, reference point to Fort Myers and what that means. Most people, when I tell them I live in Fort Myers, my friends from out of town, they're like, where's that? What is that? And then they start calling me up saying, aren't you in that place called Fort Myers? And all of a sudden, I'm become popular.
Yeah.
It's good for the whole region.
Yeah, and just last week, we won the ESPY Award for the best upset in all of sports, not just in college basketball, in all of sports. And I have that ESPY Award sitting right now on my conference table in the office. So that was another shot in the arm for our men's basketball team and for our athletics program. So it has just been an exciting time for us.
Go ahead and share with people, because I asked you that early on. I was expecting you to come up on the stage at the ESPY Awards, that you weren't able to make it there, all right?
No, I wasn't able to make it. My wife and I couldn't get it into the schedule, but we were up that evening and we were watching it, and it was just great. And I'm so proud of our young men and our coaching staff. They were great ambassadors for the university.
What does that do for the broader recruitment, the broader financial strength in terms of donations or what have we? What does the basketball team getting that kind of national attention do? Is there some residual that
Sure,
you
so,
can physically, tangibly point to?
Certainly, potentially for fundraising, that has to be a great positive, and I hope your audience will hear that and respond to that. We were very deep into the admission process when we were playing in the tournament, so we didn't see an increase in the applications. We expect to see that next year, but we also expect to see more talented athletes take notice of
That's
FGCU. You can come to this institution, and if you're a student athlete, know that you can be a part of a high quality D1 program. And you know, we talk a lot about the athletic success of our student athletes, but their GPA, which is above 3.0, is a tick or two higher than the GPA of the student body at large. So we really put the emphasis on student and student athlete.
The Duke of Southwest Florida. Football, just a moment. If you were looking into a crystal ball, would we have Florida Gulf Coast University eventually have a football team within the next 10 years?
I would say that's possible. It's not a matter if we will have football, it's a matter of when we have a student body large enough, when we can financially afford to fund not just football, but a high quality athletics program as well to continue the momentum of what we started. So it's very expensive, you know that. Anyone who wants to know how expensive, go to our webpage, look on the President's webpage, there's a feasibility study there. But it's just a matter of time, for sure. I can't say if it's 10 or 12 or 15 years, but it's going to happen.
You actually had a student who performed in Carnegie Hall. I know you're excited about that right around the NCAA tournament.
Absolutely. Priscilla Navarro, she's from our Bauer School of Music, and she had her debut recital at Carnegie Hall. My wife and I flew up along with some other folks here from FGCU. Saw the recital, got up early the next morning and took a plane to Atlanta and drove to Macon for the ASUN tournament.
Unbelievable, man. You're a whirlwinder. Let's go with I alluded to it before we went to the break, that basically every time I come on campus, there's like a new parking garage going up, a new building, a new this. Kind of summarize the look of the campus now, just opposed to where it was, say, 8 years ago.
8 years ago, we've added a number of new buildings. We've added a whole new resident hall complex. We're building right now a new 500-bed residence hall. We have about 4,200 students living in university housing right now. We've added classroom buildings. We've added parking ramps. When I got here, we had 1 parking ramp. We now have 5. So it's been a tremendous era of growth, and a lot of it was planned before I came here. Some stuff we did after I got here. We planned after I got here, but it's all resulted in a comprehensive regional university that Southwest Florida can be very, very proud of.
Well, Dr. Bradshaw, we're proud of Florida Gulf Coast University. We're proud of what you have done. I know you don't take any credit personally, but we're proud of you as well, and keep up the good work, and we look to get you back, as usual, annually here on Leap Is Live.
2 words, go Eagles.
Go Eagles. The saying goes in this particular show, but those who say it can't be done, they're usually interrupted by those like Dr. Bradshaw and all the fine people at Florida Gulf Coast University who are making a difference in our community. We'll see you next week right here on the award-winning Leap Is Live.